Exactly 20 months ago, I have been accepted for my first software engineering internship, even though my results in university merited no real bragging rights. This experience not only changed the course of my life, but also my views on what it means to be a software engineer. Reason for why, I want to tell you about how I accomplished it myself, how I turned that into a full-time position, and my afterthoughts on what was the difference between me and the rest. 3 years ago, on September 1st, 2022, I have started my Bachelor in Computing Science, which is the usual computer science degree with a focus only on software and no hardware. In my first year of university, even though I was full of excitement at the beginning, I have struggled with my studies quite a bit. Not necessarily because of a lack of human capacity, but more because my interests were spread across multiple different areas. Reason for why, my grades in my first year declined quite heavily, from starting the year off strong in subjects like logic and imperative programming, and really hitting my rock bottom in the third block. Before continuing further in the story, I want to clear up a common misunderstanding that university students in computer science have, which is what it takes to get a job as a software engineer. I think, period, that most of the people who follow CS, who understand the basic concepts of algorithms and data structures, can most likely have a future in programming, because those are the fundamental building blocks of how you have to think as a developer. It's not about knowing 5 different languages or 11 different frameworks, but more about understanding basic programming concepts. Along the period of my studies, I imagined that to become a successful programmer, I had to be a geek that enjoys reading about software even in their free time, and that I had no chance of ever getting hired or enjoy the process without them. Aspect that almost made me quit at the end of my first year. Now, the process of me getting my first internship pretty much fell into my lap. Let me clarify. At the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, students have a 10-credit course that is mandatory called software engineering, where students are grouped in multiple person projects in collaboration with local external companies. Now, you might say, how does that help me? Well, in research for this video, I found out that most universities in the world actually have a course like that. So if you're registered already into a university and following this path, you will have this opportunity at some point. With that cleared up, and now you starting your first internship, I have one main thing that you have to think about in that period. Try to stand out to your employer or company, not necessarily through the amount of knowledge you have on the specific topic, but through your communication, teamwork, and attitude. My goal in those 6 months was for me to show the company that I was the right person to hire, that knew how to behave, was proactive with his work, understood how to communicate, and cared about the future of the company. Every time I went to work and had a meeting with company executives, I dressed up nicely and prepared heavily when it came to what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. Going further along the journey and having my first internship in the books, my second year of university finalized, and I had one thing in my mind: how can I get another internship on my resume? Now, this will depend on your personal situation, but in my case, in my third year, first semester, I had the opportunity to do a minor, which in my case was broken down into the following 3. Option 1, we could select some elective CS courses. Option 2, we could opt for a different bachelor's first year courses. Or 3, a path mostly unknown to most students, an in-company internship. I say unknown because the number of people who had this internship before my year was less than 5. So at this point, knowing clearly that my grades wouldn't be enough for me to follow a path in software engineering, I knew that this was probably my last opportunity. The process doesn't matter as much, but what matters is how proactive I was in deciding my own future. I didn't leave it in the hands of someone else, but decided instead to take it into my own. I'm saying this because most of the time nothing is given. In my situation, from 200 different people who started 2 years earlier, only 10 people or so were able to get this in-company internship, which taught me that with my grades in this field, I had to do things that most people don't do. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very proud of myself. So right before starting my second internship with the same company, actually, I was asked this question: what are the skills that you have when it comes to being a developer? They were curious, do I know some HTML, some Python, some whatever? And for some reason, I said that I have experience and skills as a front-end developer, more specifically in React. When realistically, looking back at that period in my life, not only that I had no skills with React, but I had no skills as a developer at all. Or at least that's what I thought. You see, ever since I started thinking about working in IT, I always thought that the job of being a developer is 99% about writing code. I'm not saying that in some situations this is true, because it is. But in my personal situation, it definitely definitely wasn't. Through the second internship at the company, I learned that coding is important, but what's more important is being a great problem solver, which, in my opinion, can be broken down into proactiveness, communication, resilience to your work, and the humility of not being afraid to admit you don't know. Every day, as a software engineer, I was given a problem that always varied. A problem that most of the time needed minimal coding, but more careful debugging. And this taught me that I had to understand what I was working with and find the small puzzle piece that is missing. Lastly, there is one last lesson that I wish you took away from this. After being an intern and a part-time employee for over 1 month, in August 2025, I have officially received my letter of being invited to be a full-time employee at my company. A position that I honestly think I got not because I was the best developer, but through the sacrifices and dedication that I showed through my work. With this story, I want to reflect that yes, technical knowledge is important, but maybe the things on the outside of it matter as much or even more in the end.